The Atlantic is beginning to wake up with more tropical activity as we are now watching two different areas. One will most likely become Tropical Storm Gabrielle here in the next few days and has a good shot to become a hurricane at some point. And we now have a new area of interest we are watching for another tropical wave that has a shot to develop between now in the next 7 days or so. So here to get very detailed on everything that we know. First thing we'll go over is current conditions out in the Atlantic, the latest from the National Hurricane Center, and then we'll go over all model runs from overnight into this morning. Then we'll break down today's weather. In that section of the video, we'll speak about a coastal low that is ongoing right now and developing and could bring tropical storm-like conditions across areas of the North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, even Delaware coastline. In fact, that's ongoing right now. So we'll get very detailed on that in that section of the video, and then we'll round the video off with a Bible devotion if you want to join us for that. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure this is going to work for us. Let's take a broad look at everything first. First off, this is our coastal low. I know it doesn't look like much on your screen here, but this is an interesting little short-term thing we are watching, and we'll get detailed on that here for the back half of the video, but I did want to circle it on your screen. I mean, it's right up against the East Coast. We got some convection stuff right here, but not really thinking this is going to develop into anything tropical or anything like that. But there's two things that really got our attention, and one has most of our attention, and that's this gigantic tropical wave right smack in the middle of what we call the MDR, main development region. And you would look at this and immediately kind of get a little scared, I guess you would say, and think, man, this is going to become something that we need to worry about as it's huge. It looks scary, but I'll speak on why we don't need to worry so much about this as we make our way throughout the video. But you never know, things could change, but we're going to go over all of that here in this video. And then there's a new tropical wave sort of halfway over areas of the Atlantic, and part of it's still over areas of Africa. This is our next tropical wave behind the main tropical wave that we are watching that now has a shot at development. So this is a large look at everything, a closer look at these two tropical waves. I mean, obviously this is taking up most of your screen, right? You see all these colors out over the Atlantic Ocean. This is indicating colder cloud tops, which means we have more intense convection. Intense convection leads to taller updrafts. Taller updrafts, taller storms get taller up in the atmosphere, and the higher up you get, the colder it gets in the upper levels in the atmosphere. And this is reflected by the colors you see on your screen. So, I mean, it's very large, but just because you have a large tropical wave, that don't mean that actually means that these waves can struggle a little bit more because they're so large. And sometimes when they're smaller, they can kind of consolidate a lot better. It's like sometimes when they're this big, they just have a hard time kind of putting themselves together, if that makes any sense. But there's another more sloppy looking tropical wave right here further out in the eastern Atlantic. But these are the two areas we're really watching for tropical development. And in fact, this is our main area, has a 90% chance to develop. That red X is right where the tropical wave is right now, which we just showed you. And this has a 90% chance to develop sometime between now and the next really few days. But if we actually look at the 2-day outlook, it has an 80% chance to form. And this has actually been dubbed an Invest 92L. It actually has an 80% chance to develop into a depression or a named storm, which is Gabrielle, between now and the next 48 hours. So it could happen really pretty soon. So the next area we are watching is behind this, and this is new from overnight. So this yellow X is where the tropical wave of interest is located right now. Has a 20% chance to develop in this yellow area. So the wave needs to get into this yellow area before it has that 20% chance to develop sometime between now and the next 7 days. And model guidance likes this somewhat. It's a little confusing, and I'll explain why here in a second, but we have two areas of interest. So, in general, if we kind of look at the entire look here, you would think, man, this is starting to look kind of worrisome, right? Well, not necessarily. So let's move past this. Let's go over model guidance, and we're going to start this off with tomorrow afternoon. If I do forget at any time to mention dates, just look up here, September 17th. Obviously, that's tomorrow. I've been getting my dates mixed up a lot this month for whatever reason. But anyways, this is our main tropical wave that has that 90% chance to develop, Invest 92L. The one behind it, I mean, it's barely even showing up on your screen. So we'll kind of have to focus on two different things at the same time. I know that's going to be a little tough, and it'll be tough for me to explain it, but here it comes. You see this L right here? This is getting into Thursday evening this week. We got some sort of wave right in here, or maybe two different waves, two different areas of interest. But I mean, there's one main area of energy right here that you can obviously see on your screen. 1,005 millibar low, and this is gaining latitude, which is good. It's not taking more of that east to west path that we don't like to see as these try to sneak into the Eastern Caribbean. We've avoided that for the most part so far this hurricane season. But, we're getting into Friday afternoon. I do think this will be Gabrielle at this point. The Euro is saying 1,004 millibar low. I really think this could be a large system just because the origin of it is large right now, right? So we get into Saturday. There's two things you're looking at. One is a tropical storm, maybe hurricane right here, well north of the Leeward Islands, not affecting anyone. And then we got a wave trying to get going down here. And this is getting into this Saturday. So we get into Sunday, and then we get into, let's stop it here. This is Sunday evening. We got some sort of energy here, which is probably our wave of interest. And then we got an all-out hurricane just south of Bermuda, which is right here. So I'm going to keep this going in motion. It actually has a landfalling hurricane. Well, I wouldn't say the actual center of the system hits Bermuda. You're going to have to need a crazy direct landfall. Bermuda is just a very small speck. No offense to you guys out in Bermuda in the Atlantic Ocean. But this would bring, if the Euro was to actually happen, which we know is just model guidance, this would bring significant impacts to Bermuda about a week from today. But we got a wave behind it. What does this wave behind it do? At the same time, what would be Hurricane Gabrielle is making a curve and just getting further out in the North Atlantic and actually heading back east. And then we got a wave under it right here. And this is getting about 10 days from now. We have sort of this trapped, weak, very small tropical storm about 10 days from now, which could be the wave that's an area of interest right now behind the main wave that has a 20% chance to develop. So, yeah, that's the Euro, a little bit closer to home, just kind of a different way to look at this. This is what would be Gabrielle, and we get deep into this weekend. There it goes, making a turn. It's not bothering anybody except Bermuda. That's why we really need to watch and track this. Now, for my folks up in Atlantic Canada, the pattern really supports right now for this to book it well to the south and eventually to the east. But we continue to track as always. And then here comes that next wave sneaking in. And we'll even go past 10 days, and that actually does turn into a hurricane. The next name after Gabrielle is Umberto, I think is how you pronounce it. So that's the H name, even though it's Umberto. But anyways, we get past 300 hours out. And for anybody wondering for any kind of homegrown activity, the Euro just doesn't like it. It's going to be wild if we somehow get through the entire hurricane season with no tropical cyclones in the Gulf. It'll be wild. It really will. But looking at the GFS, we got about 10, 11 days of it, so we got a lot of it, which is good. And we continue to move forward here, and we get into Thursday morning. It says GFS thinks we're going to have Tropical Storm Gabrielle by Thursday morning, and then we start to get into Saturday midday. It actually has this sort of maintaining, but maybe even weakening. So GFS does not like this surviving much in the medium term. Here comes that wave of interest behind it. But eventually the GFS does get it together and begins to strengthen this. And then by Monday morning, 6 days from now, we have Category 1 or 2 hurricane southeast of Bermuda in this area. And then we have another wave behind it. And this actually turns into a tropical storm too. And it's wild. This turns into a major hurricane. What is Invest 92L right now, the wave that has a 90% chance to develop. And the reason I keep repeating myself, guys, is because I don't want you guys to get confused between the two different waves. It can get confusing when we're tracking sort of two areas of interest. But this is, a major hurricane, just east of Bermuda. But it does miss it, and then it begins to do the same thing that the Euro does and really hook this back east pretty dramatically. And it doesn't have this other tropical storm behind it really surviving. Now, we look at another way, a little bit closer to home. There's what would be Hurricane Gabrielle. Is there any sort of Central American gyrum type stuff, homegrown activity? I mean, it does try to pop off a tropical system here in the Gulf, but it's 282 hours out, guys. So really, if we start this off Saturday midday, this is our first signal, right? Our main signal, the signal that will likely become Gabrielle here in the next maybe 48, 72 hours. This is kind of our weak tropical wave signal behind it that has sort of that 20% chance to develop. We take it about a week out. This is why we need to watch Bermuda. This takes us all the way out to next Tuesday morning. Some of these L's, and remember this, there isn't 50 low pressures out here or attack of the L's, right? This makes up 51 members, and a lot of these members get very close or significantly impact Bermuda. And then you can see the wave behind it. You got a couple little stragglers down here. I read a couple comments about this area down here in Central America. I'm not concerned about this until we have just solid agreement between all model guidance. Sometimes models just really, especially the GFS, it's really mainly the GFS, loves to pop off tropical systems from the Central American gyrum that 90% of the time don't end up happening. But we continue to move forward, and we get about 10 days out. And it gets kind of confusing because you got the wave behind it. This is the main wave, but you can see Bermuda's this little speck here. And almost every single one of these members turn. Okay, there's like 2 members that are strong hurricanes that try to sneak into the Turks Caicos Islands and eventually the southern Bahamas. But this is a strong signal for this to recurve. All right, the GFS ensemble, it's pretty much the same thing. There does show a little signal for a low pressure trying to develop off the coast of the southeast as we get into this weekend or so. But we're going to ignore that for now. And then we take this about a week from today. And even the members that try to hang a little bit further west still are pretty far east. So between now and the next 10 days, I mean, you don't really have... It's a pretty solid signal that this is going to stay out to sea. We just need to watch Bermuda. So... why is all this continuing to stay out to sea? Well, really to sum this up, folks, is we've continued to have a very weak Atlantic high or Bermuda high, whatever you want to call it, which is high pressure that hangs out, over the Atlantic. This has been weak. It's not that we've had a non-existent high pressure out here. It's just been very weak. And if you have a weak high pressure, a weak high pressure can steer these systems to the west for, east to west for a time. But the stronger they get, the more they're going to probably try to gain latitude, especially against a weaker high pressure. Another thing that we've been seeing is a lot of troughing across the eastern U.S. So we've had these cold fronts that's really kicked out anything from affecting the eastern U.S. or even sneaking into the Gulf, which is what's brought us these early fall-like temperatures in, the southeast and the eastern U.S. I mean, it's 57 degrees at my house right now. We've hit below 60 degrees here in central South Carolina over 10 to 12 times already. So sometimes we go all the way to October before getting below 60 degrees. So it's been a nice start to September or, climo fall. But and that links to hurricane season. Normally, if it's a cooler than average kind of start to late August, early September, that's going to kind of save us from, any kind of threats from the tropics for the most part. It doesn't always connect to that. But anyways, week high, here's our system. And we're going to look at the Euro, right? This is our main system. We're not going to talk about the system behind it. This is starting off tomorrow afternoon. So our system's right here. The blue is actually low pressure itself. The warmer colors, the yellows, orange, and reds, that's high pressure. So our low pressure is being steered by this sort of weak high pressure over the Atlantic. And as we continue to move forward here, there's still that high pressure there. It could strengthen, and our low pressure still just kind of right here, very weak at this point. But then it begins to gain some strength right here, well north of the Leeward Islands, which is right here, and the Virgin Islands, Bermuda here. So at this point, the strongest part of this high pressure is right here. It's right into here. Okay, so we got this trough digging down. This could help weaken this this high pressure right in here. At this point, this is still, moving to the east somewhat. I'm sorry, moving to the west somewhat, but it's already beginning to sort of feel the weakness. Okay. And so as we continue to move this forward, right, this is still somewhat being pushed a little bit to the west, but it's already kind of rounding around the stronger portion of the ridge and steering this very close to Bermuda. Okay, and then we continue, and at this point, this thing is just working its way north. Now, you might think, well, how is it working against ridging like this? And I'll just continue to say, guys, the strongest portion of this ridge is right here. So even though, and this is where it gets tough to explain, even though you see a bunch of warmer colors, like yellowish orange right here, that's still not a very strong ridge influence. So if this is as strong as the Euro is showing, which is a hurricane, which is a strong tropical system, regardless if it's a Cat 1 or Cat 4, this is going to feel this weakness right in here. I mean, there's just not much there stopping this from gaining some latitude. Maybe not dramatically. And that's one thing I'll watch for. Do we get a trend to a stronger high pressure into here to sort of push this a little bit further to the west than what this is showing? But eventually, wide open weakness shows up, and this gets picked up by this eastern Canadian trough. So it's a little bit tricky to explain just because you can see ridging in place, but it's weak ridging. And I think because this gains so much latitude in the short and medium term, it kind of just is inevitable for it to eventually turn. But as far as today's weather, a little bit of action across the west and the northern high plains. Nothing too crazy, but the big show here ongoing is this kind of coastal low. And it's going to be wild to see if this can gain a little bit of a warm core, some tropical characteristics at the last second today. But we'll certainly see what happens. But you can see a spin on radar. This is bringing some gusty winds. Nothing too crazy, nothing you guys can't handle here in Delaware, Maryland, areas of Virginia and northeast North Carolina. But it's bringing some showers, even some thunderstorm activity along and just off the coast of the Outer Banks. But the watches, warnings, and advisories, we do have some wind alerts out here. We have some flood watches up for areas of North Carolina, Virginia. But nothing too crazy. This could do something tricky at the last second, but we'll watch. We do have a marginal risk in place for these areas for some severe thunderstorms. The main area we'll watch for is areas from Minnesota, small section of northern Wisconsin, down to areas of South Dakota, but then into Nebraska, down into Nebraska. We have a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. And we do have a 2% risk of a tornado from just outside of Denver all the way up through North Platte. So be aware of some tornadoes in this area. I'm not expecting a huge tornado day, but I could see it increasing to a 5% risk. And then in this yellow area, we have a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. The hail threat is at a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And the flooding threat, just a couple 5% risk areas, but we do need to watch Norfolk down to Elizabeth City and everywhere in between the Hampton Roads area. There is a 15% risk of flash flooding within 25 miles in any given location from this coastal low. And, the southeast today, you can see low pressure right here spinning a lot of shower and storm activity into the area. And this will continue. This will keep temperatures pretty chilly. This is how you can tell this isn't really truly tropical in nature, with how chilly it's going to be in areas of North Carolina and Virginia today. Temperatures will be held down to the 60s for highs in areas of Virginia and eastern North Carolina. Pretty wild. But just a closer look at some of these convective showers and storms. This is getting into 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. You see some storms working in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Richmond. And it could get pretty dicey around 5 to 10 p.m. tonight around Virginia Beach, southern areas of Maryland. You can see how we have some darker shades, some yellows, some orange, some reds here. This could be some heavier activity, some heavier rains. And this is where really some flooding could start to get going, some gusty, strong winds. I mean, maybe even 40, as much as 50-mile-per-hour winds could be ongoing. And you can see the little spin right here working its way tomorrow morning into the tidewater. And just another way to look at this shows Baltimore, D.C., and here comes this action getting up into Salisbury. Get a little bit of action up into Dover later tonight, and this is getting into tomorrow morning. But, winds between now and just the entirety of this event, I mean, we could get some 30, 40, maybe even 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts around the Virginia Beach area. I mean, up into the tidewater. And just the coastal areas right into here, southern Maryland. I mean, this shade of color right here in this kind of yellowish orange color, that's the potential for 50, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So it's going to feel like there's something tropical with this, except it's not going to feel extremely tropical out there as far as wind gusts, rain. It'll seem tropical, but and who knows, that this could have some tropical characteristics with it. But be aware of this today. Don't let it catch you off guard. And some of this action this afternoon could bring some showers all the way up into southern New Jersey, southeast PA. But as we're getting into tomorrow morning, this could bring some activity up into Long Island. But in general today, it's going to still remain dry. I know we're in some really bad drought conditions across New England. Unfortunately, today we're going to remain without rain. But the south central U.S., hot, stagnant air, stinks because it's mid-September, but just pop-up showers and storms. More flow out west and New Mexico, Colorado. We're going to get some more shower and storm activity in this area. And you can see later this evening some big storms up in Nebraska, moving out of Colorado. And then we get into tomorrow morning, and this will diminish. But, going up into the north central U.S., the upper Midwest, pretty quiet day. It's really down here in Nebraska, northeast Colorado, maybe some thunderstorms up into northeast Minnesota. But it's really just a big area of storms surging through Nebraska, more so heavy rain up into South Dakota. And just taking a closer look at Nebraska, we take it to about 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. You see these storms that form kind of between Scottsbluff and just northern Nebraska. These are the ones that could produce some tornadoes. You see those circle things coming off some of these cells. This is intense updrafts, potential for rotating updrafts. And it could get pretty dicey, especially in western, southwestern Nebraska today. These could produce some heavy rainfall and some explosive thunderstorms in this area with a low pressure ejecting across the area. So just be aware of that. The western U.S., we actually could get a little bit of snow in the higher elevations of southern Montana today. Wyoming will get some thunderstorms also, especially for the central to eastern areas of the state. Be aware of that. And you see this low down here. This is actually Mario, Tropical Storm Mario, that could actually bring a push of moisture late tomorrow night, maybe into the southern coastline of California. We'll watch for that. But temperatures, you can see that pocket of cooler air from this coastal low here in Virginia, North Carolina, and the Delmarva area. Nice day in the northeast. Closer you get to that Mississippi River, the hotter it is. You guys are just locked into summer type conditions, and this is out west. Pocket of cooler air in the middle of the country, warming up to the west, warming up to the east. So, let's do a quick Bible devotion with you guys. I got one, and let's knock this down a little bit. So for this morning, it's Psalm chapter 94, verse 19. When the cares of my heart are many, your consolations cheer my soul. When the cares of my heart are many, your consolations cheer my soul. I said, and I wrote a couple things here. I said, everyone will face some form of anxiety throughout life. This anxiety can cripple you if you let it. The cares of the world will pass away and be replaced by eternal joy. God's comfort will cheer and calm your soul if you go to Him in these times of struggle. Now, focusing on God's mission for your life will drive you through the valleys. We as believers are not exempt from struggles, but we are fully equipped to handle them. I'll say that again. We as believers are not exempt from struggles, but we are fully equipped to handle them. So I'll say a couple things. Listen, I think we all know that. We every one of us are going to go through struggles. And I'm just going to leave it with this and try not to chatter about this for 10 minutes like I like to do sometimes, but this is what I do in my life when I'm feeling high in anxiety, when I'm struggling with something, when I just have a lot of things in my mental to-do list that I really want to check off, but I just cannot check them off at that point. I have to have patience, which I've told you guys I've struggled with. I tell you what, the quiet time is huge. It is so big in my life, and I'm telling you, I recommend it for everybody, especially if you work a daytime job. If you're somebody that has an 8 to 5 job or 7 to 3:30 job, whatever it is, I encourage you guys to knock off a couple hours in the evenings, go to bed early, and then wake up early. I mean, before everybody in your house gets up, and have quiet time with God. It gives you such clarity. It helps out so much. One thing that I like to do when I'm going, and I do this regardless, but one thing that I really like to do is just take one lap around my neighborhood, and just talk to God while I'm walking. And sometimes I do it out loud, and it helps out so much. He's not gonna come down. I mean, he's not gonna come down and just answer you right then and just solve all your problems. But it really is like just a catapult to your rest of your day. And he will give you a calm and a peace. And listen, I'm telling you, quiet time is huge. It's a way to glorify God, give him the glory. And I mean, you feel what comes from that. It calms your soul. It literally gives you peace and clarity. And it will give you a boost for the rest of your day. So I'll leave it with that. I really encourage you guys to do it. Just don't sleep all the way until it's just time to wake up and get in the shower and go to work. I'm telling you, that's not. I never ever want to go back to that kind of lifestyle ever. And I know most people do it. I know there's probably people watching the video that do it, but I encourage you guys to have quiet time with the Lord, especially believers. And if you're not a believer and you're listening to this, listen, reach out to me if you have any questions. Give God a chance, guys. Give him a chance. And, you'll see what happens. You'll see what happens. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again tomorrow.